Hi, I'm Michele Bullock. I'm a licensed massage therapist in Washington, and I bring you MBLEx resources here on YouTube with videos, all available for free. And then on my website, through the link tree in the description below, you'll find lots of stuff. I've got eBooks, courses, practice tests, all to help you to pass the MBLEx with calm and confidence. So today we're going to be going into the musculoskeletal system in the Anatomy and Physiology series that I've been doing. And it's a 4-part series, like mini series within the Anatomy and Physiology umbrella. So I'm creating a whole course to be putting on my website. And while I'm making each individual video, I'm just posting them on YouTube. So here they are. And what I'm going to be talking about in this webinar is why why the skeletal muscular system is important, functions of the muscular system, characteristics of the muscular system, stuff about fascia, and then tendons, aponeuroses, tenoperiosteal junctions, so many things. Okay, and then at the very end, we're going to do some MBLEx practice questions. So if all that sounds like stuff that's going to work for you, then stick around and make sure and check out the other videos in this series as well. I do want to mention that I'm not, in this 4-part series, I'm not going to be talking about individual muscles and their actions. If you want to know all about that, I have a comprehensive course on my website. It's listed in the link tree in the description below. That's Muscle Mastery. So it's from origin to action. So it talks about all the motions that every muscle that you need to know for the MBLEx does. So all about that. So go check that out. It's absolutely free. So it's there for you so that you can be ready for the MBLEx in that context. But also in this little series, I'm not talking about skeletal muscle pathologies and what you need to know about those. That's in another course that I've already created, the Pathologies for Body Workers course. So check that out too. It's also absolutely free. So there's that. And then I just also want to mention that the information that I'm presenting in this Anatomy and Physiology series is not a comprehensive overview of everything you could ever know about anatomy and physiology of all these systems. I'm just going over very briefly what you need to know in order to pass the MBLEx. I'm assuming that you already took an anatomy and physiology course, or you are already currently taking an anatomy and physiology course, and you just need that support to know what exactly you need to have memorized in order to succeed at the massage and bodywork licensing exam. If you are currently a student and you just want to absorb some extra information or come at the information from a different perspective, I certainly needed that. Then this video is perfect for you. And for those of you who just know all this stuff already but just needed a quick refresher, it's also there for you. Okay, so going ahead and getting started, there are 3 different types of muscle tissue, and in the tissues unit, I believe it was unit 3, that we talked about the tissues, the different kinds of tissues that we have. There's one of the subsections is muscle tissue. So there's smooth muscle, which is involuntary and non-striated, and it lines the walls of our digestive system, our respiratory system, and our cardiovascular systems. And then there is the cardiac muscle, which is involuntary, striated, and only found in the heart. So those 2 are involuntary. They just happen. It's regulated by our nervous system. And fortunately, we don't have to think about that. And then the skeletal muscles are what we're going to be talking about today. And those are voluntary. Typically, they can also be reflexive, but like they're not working constantly. They're not always doing things to keep us alive. They just work when they need to work. And they're striated, which means that they have lines through them. And we're going to be talking about that in this video. And then there's just the reminder about checking out the Pathologies for Body Workers and the Muscle Mastery course. Okay, so the skeletal muscular system is what brings the body to life. It transforms the framework of bones into motion, balance, and strength. Every breath and movement depends on muscle tissue working in harmony with the nervous and skeletal systems. For massage therapists and body workers, understanding this system is essential. It reveals how muscles contract and relax, how they respond to injury, and how tension or imbalance in one region can affect the entire body. And it's important for LMTs because they need to be able to apply the techniques with precision, improve mobility, and reduce pain and support true functional restoration. So knowing how muscles work is so important. Okay, so first we want to talk about the functions of the muscular system. And that's all the different ways that the the skeletal muscular system benefit us. So we have, let's see, I think it's 4 functions. That's it, yeah. So 4 functions, and the first one is the movement of body parts. That's the most obvious thing. So it's attached to bones on either end of one or more joints. The muscle contracts, it generates tension on one of the ends, which is the insertion, and it pulls the bone over through, like, across the joint. Another thing that it helps with is it helps us with posture. It helps us with holding our body upright so it isn't flopping. So there's like a small tension that's created that just holds us up, doesn't actually move us along. Another thing that it does is it stabilizes our joints. The muscles will stabilize our joints to help us to not fall apart. Muscles work with joint capsules and ligaments to stabilize the structure of each articulation. That's what they call a joint. And then finally, when ATP is broken down to create contraction, energy is released as heat, and that's what keeps us warm. So when we shiver, when we get really cold, it's the muscles making tiny contractions to generate heat to warm us up. Okay, so we're going to talk about the characteristics of skeletal muscle, and there are slightly different characteristics for fascia, and we're going to get into that. But we need to be able to list these 4 characteristics that are different in skeletal muscle tissue than any other tissue in the body. And so what these differences are is that they are excitable, so they're designed to respond quickly to stimulation by the nervous system. They're contractile, so the organization of the fibers, and then the sarcomeres that are inside of them. Sarcomeres are this, in between each of these lines is a sarcomere. It allows every fiber to contract forcefully when they're stimulated, when they're excited. And then extensible, which means they're able to stretch, they're stretchy. And they're elastic, means that they can rebound to their original shape and length. So let's talk about what skeletal muscle is made out of. Here's a couple of images. This is a section of muscle fibers that have been squished in under a microscope. You know how they use those little glass sheets to squish the tissue, and so they got a little tiny sliver of muscle tissue, and you can see the sarcomeres that are stacked up to create a muscle fiber. These are the contractile parts right here. There's about 650 muscles, and also it's 35% of our body weight. Some people, it's more than that. So muscle cells, fibers, that's what they're made out of. Muscle cells, proteins, as well as lipids, amino acids, metabolites, and small RNAs. Also, there's DNA inside of the nuclei that are also inside of there. Oh, and I did want to mention, this is a cross section. See how this is a cross section of the muscle here? Cross section of a belly, cross section of a fascicle. This is a cross section of a muscle belly, and you can see all the little fascicles that are stacked up in there. And then fascia. We're going to talk about fascia a little bit. Fascia is the connective tissue packaging around every muscle belly, every fascicle, every fiber. It can be loose or dense depending on the structure, and it's classified as disorganized fibrous connective tissue. that is compared to the connective tissue that's, for example, in our joint capsules and in our ligaments and, let's see, in the tendons. Those are all organized fibrous connective tissue. So they're made of ground substance. We've been talking about ground substance in all the other videos, which is glycosaminoglycans. I have a hard time saying that word. Glycosaminoglycans and water. It's all the filling. It's everything else besides the elastin and collagen. But specifically in fascia, we have a special kind of collagen, which is called tropocollagen. And when tension is applied to that tropocollagen, instead of stretching, it unwinds. So it stays more solid than that stretchy elastic muscle tissue. And so it can unwind very, very slowly when tension is slowly gets to, like, if you try to just force it, it will tighten up. It's like what do they call that? Stuff that kids are playing with these days. Like if you try to pull it hard, it'll break. It's like a stretchy goo. If you try to pull it harder, it'll break. But if you move it slowly, it will stretch. It's like that. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. You can put it in the comments what that stuff is called. But it works like that. So it has like a twisted structure. So it'll break if you pull it hard. Don't do that. Our body's meant to not do that. But if you pull it and warm it slowly, it will unwind. And that ground substance that I just mentioned, it lubricates the collagen fibers and the muscle tissue that it packages around each of these things. So it creates a network of tension, binding, and allowing smooth gliding structure. So we need that fascia, and it's all over our body. So we're going to talk about the different kinds of fascia that we have. And in the next video, I'm also going to be talking about the complete structure, the anatomy of skeletal muscle, including the fascia, and all the ways that fascia packages every single layer of the muscle tissue. So what it does is the deep fascia, they call it the fascia profunda. It's the packaging for everything. So all the tissues, even our organs. But in the case where we're talking about muscles, it packages the muscle belly. It packages the fascicles at the next level. It packages the muscle fiber, which is the cells. And it also is all up inside of the muscle fibers where the myofibrils are. It's everywhere. And then so it supports those muscle fibers so that they're not too floppy. They don't stretch forever. It creates a framework to hold everything in place. And then the other kind of fascia that we have is the panicular fascia, which is the superficial fascia that's right under your skin, and it anchors the dermis and epidermis to the underlying structures. And when we talked about the integumentary system in the last few videos, before the skeletal system, we were talking about how this would be the epidermis, the top layer. The second layer would be the dermis. And then underneath we have the adipose tissue, but also we have the panicular fascia that connects everything together, holds it all in place. Okay, so properties of fascia. There's a term that you'll need to know called tensegrity. You might be tested on that. It was coined by I can't remember exactly. He was a polymath, but Buckminster Fuller. I think he was an architect. So he describes tension between two opposing forces as creating a balanced structural integrity. So there's these toys that people play with that these ropes will hold these poles in place, and they'll create a structure that is wonky and disorganized, but it holds in place, and you can put a lot of weight on it and it'll stay up. And that's what happens in our bodies. Gravity creates compression a force on the bones, and fascia and muscles use tension to keep the body upright. So the fascia is like the string along with the muscles, and then the poles would be the bones. And that's how our body keeps itself upright. And then also another property of fascia is that it's viscoelastic. So I was talking about the structure of the tropocollagen as being a helix. And I in my software that I designed my slideshows, I was looking up helix, and all they had was a double helix, like a DNA strand. So it's kind of like a DNA strand, but with a third strand. So they didn't have anything like that, but I just wanted to, with the staircase, I just wanted to show you that it's like a spiral structure. And when you want to stretch a muscle, you go to stretch your hamstrings. Your hamstrings would stretch forever if you didn't have fascia packaging everything. Instead, that fascia is holding it together, and it will slowly unwind to allow that muscle, that whole muscle, to stretch. And then when it's time for it to go back, it slowly goes back together. So it can go back to its original shape because of, thank you, fascia. A couple other properties of fascia is it's thixotropic. That is a cool word, isn't it? I would call that a 25-cent word. So that means it's got that round substance, which creates a viscous or liquid state, depending on temperature, pressure, or movement. So literally, fascia can liquefy if you warm it up. And that's what you're doing when you use that mechanical pressure and heat on your client when you're massaging them. You turn the fascia that's packaging their muscles into a liquid state, and that's what enables those muscles to relax. Another property is piezoelectricity. There's a small electrical charge on the surface of the fascia when you use pressure, when you're massaging somebody. And this, they believe, excites the fibroblasts. Remember when we're talking about blasts, those are cells that build muscle, okay? Excites the fibroblasts and inhibits fibroclasts. Those are cells that destroy muscle. So it improves healing because of this electrical charge in the fascia. Whoa, too many I's in there. I gotta fix that. Plasticity, that's the ability to be molded or changed. So fascia has the properties of being changeable, responsive, and adaptive. Oh, I want to change that. I'll have to come back. I'm just going to write that in my note real quick. Okay, so connective tissue components. So these are the parts that attach the muscle and the fascia to the bone. And parts of it can be a little bit fascia too. So also fascia but considered to be organized fibrous connective tissue. Okay. So aponeuroses are broad, flat tendons attached to muscle. So we have the lumbar aponeurosis attaching the lumbar muscles to the vertebrae here. Then we have retinacula, which are the sheaths for binding and guiding tendons. We have those in our wrist and our ankle. So wrapping around the flexors and extensors, and also in the ankles. Retinacula. Interosseous membranes, those are binding the two long bones together, like the radius and ulna and the tibia and fibula. And then we have the ligaments, which are the straps that hold the bones together. These have a cross-hatched configuration to stabilize the tissue. So they can also, all of these structures, because they have fascia components to them, they can be softened and stretched as well, just like we can do with fascia. But their configuration is a little bit more solid, so that they keep us from completely falling apart. Okay, so here are the lists. And some more stuff. Tendons. We didn't talk about tendons yet. That's the big one. Those are the connection between the muscle belly and the bone. So we got the pink part that contracts, and then the tendon, and then we got the bone. The tendon doesn't contract. It's also organized connective tissue and considered to have fascia properties. So it's densely packed parallel collagen fibers, way less ground substance than typical fascia, and has minimal elastin. We don't want it to be too stretchy. We want it to stabilize the contractile tissue to the bone. So two different structures that you'll need to know, and these are both big words, but they're really, really simple definitions. So we have the tenoperiosteal junction. Periosteal, that's the periosteum of the bone. That's the outside coating of the bone. So the tendon attaches to the bone at the tenoperiosteal junction. Very easy. And at the musculotendinous junction, that's where the pink stuff attaches to the white stuff on the bone. That's what they call the musculotendinous junction. So very simple definitions for very big, scary words. And we're done with that section. And we're going to do some practice questions. I hope that you're all able to absorb all of that, but going through these questions will help to lock in a little bit more information. So first one, which of the following is not a primary function of the muscular system? So this is where we are looking for the one wrong answer, and then the rest of the information is function of the muscular system. And remember our 4 functions that we had? Let's see what we can find that are true or not true in this list. Producing movement through contraction of muscle fibers. That's A. Producing movement through contraction and relaxation of muscle fibers. I do remember that was true. That was the first one on the list. B. Maintaining posture and stabilizing joints throughout the body. That was true as well. C. Storing calcium and phosphorus for release into the bloodstream when needed. Nope, that's the role of the skeletal system. We just learned about that in the last section. So that one is not correct. That's what we're going for. And then D, generating heat to help maintain the body's internal temperature. That's true as well. So the answer would be, the answer that we're going to be circling, which is the incorrect answer, would be C, storing calcium and phosphorus for release into the bloodstream. And my explanation here, the muscular system's main functions are to produce movement, maintain posture, generate heat through contraction, and also stabilize joints. Okay, which of the following characteristics is specific to muscle tissue rather than fascia? So what's it asking? Which is the correct answer out of the list? And what is true about muscle tissue and not about fascia? So let's remember what the characteristics were of muscle tissue. We had excitability, contractility, elastic, and extensible for muscle tissue. Thixotropy, that is for fascia. That's the ability to become more liquid. That's fascia, okay? Contractility, the ability to actively shorten and produce tension. I do remember that being a muscle tissue thing. And viscoelasticity is the ability to return to its normal shape, and piezoelectricity, generating electrical charge. Those are both fascia characteristics. Okay, the ability to actively shorten and produce tension is exclusive to muscle tissue and really to not to any other kind of tissue in the body. Okay, so there's the explanation if you want to go back and read that again. Which of the following statements correctly Okay, so which of the following correctly states the locations of aponeuroses and retinacula in the body? I can't believe I can't see this stuff when I'm writing it out. Question 3. I have to go back and fix that. A. Aponeuroses are thick connective bands found at the joints, while retinacula are broad sheets connecting muscles to bones. Now remember, aponeuroses are broad sheets, and retinacula are thick connective bands around the joints. Okay, so that one is wrong. B, both aponeuroses, and retinacula are found only in the torso, providing core stability. So an aponeurosis is found not only in the torso, but it's also found on our feet. So for sure, that's not true. And retinacula, that's not true either. C, aponeuroses are broad, flat, tendinous sheets connecting muscles such as the abdomen and the scalp. So we also have that in the abdomen, and we also have it in the scalp too. While retinacula are fibrous bands near joints such as the wrist and ankle that hold tendons in place. C is true. D is aponeuroses cover bone surfaces like the periosteum, while retinacula separate muscle compartments in the limbs, which is not true. So I would circle C, broad, flat, tendinous sheets connecting muscles, while retinacula are fibrous bands that hold tendons in place. Okay. All right, so there's that written out, so you can come back to it if you need to. Next question. Which of the following best describes the structural composition of a tendon? Now, we were talking about how tendons are a little bit different than the rest. They are dense, connective tissue with parallel collagen fibers and minimal elastin. And that's the definition that we have in A, so I do believe that that's true. Loose areolar connective tissue is not true. With abundant ground substance, yeah, that's not true. Let's see, dense irregular connective tissue containing random arrangements, that's more closer to fascia. D, fibrocollagen, I'll say that again, D, fibrocartilage with embedded chondrocytes and a gelatinous matrix for shock absorption. No, that would be closer to being a joint composition. So A is the correct answer. Tendons are composed of dense, regular connective tissue where collagen fibers are aligned in parallel to efficiently transmit the pulling force of a contraction to bone. They contain very little elastin, making them strong and slightly flexible, but not stretchy. And that's it for our first unit of the skeletal muscle system. Go ahead and check out the next video. If it's been posted, that's going to be Unit 11, where we're going to be talking about the anatomy of the skeletal muscle system. And I will see you over there. Toodaloo.